Hey everybody, we've got another cool bike to work on today, kind of a little bit of a barn find. So in this video we're going to be taking apart this old school Shogun 80s mountain bike and going to give it the old silent treatment. That is a full tune-up, overhaul if you will, and see how much this thing still shines afterwards. I'm going to go ahead and get started with this guy, and we'll start taking it apart and see really what we're into. Oh yeah, needs a little service. Bearings feel pretty dry. Front feels good. Oh, they're sealed. Nice. I love this little tool, this little butterfly valve. Alright, so now we've got the bottom bracket disassembled. Bearings look pretty good. Can't really complain. They're well greased. This one's got a lot of grease packed still in it, so it's definitely something that needs cleaned. But before I take these over to the wash station, I'll just hit them with this rag and get the bulk of the grime off of them. Bearings honestly don't need to be washed. Just wiped down with this rag and then maybe cleaned with some light oil. The bearing cups, on the other hand, I will wash because I want the dirt to come off too. Alright, so wheels off, bottom bracket off. Parts that need to go in the wash bucket are there. Spindle looks good. This bike's in good shape. It hasn't been ridden that hard, which is nice. So first thing I got to do here is take the accessories off. It's just a little bit of corrosion and stuff in there, not a big deal. I'm sure this thing still works. You can just like build up and be your like apocalypse bike. Put some Catalever brakes on it. They last a long time. And they have a lot of stopping power, so you can carry a lot of gear. Both of these brake cables are toast, both corroded, on their way to get rusted. And they're huge. They're like these giant, like 1.8 millimeter fucking cables that they used way back in the 80s. I run 1.5s now for pretty much everything. So, that's all good. One thing that's good on this bike still is the grips. I'm surprised those are in really nice shape still. That looks like it's going to be easy. Yep, nice. Got a nice quality Shimano D'Ore derailleur. These are pretty good derailleurs for their day. Oh, it is pretty gummed up though, so this will have to be taken apart and clean. Make sure everything moves good in it still. It looks like it'll be resurrectable though. That's really on there good. It's really tight. I like the design they used back on these bikes. They had like a triple nut headset design. So you have your top jam nut, and below that immediately is another jam nut that can only be turned with a spanner tool magnet. This one. I have a little tiny spanner tool, which is only available on this old piece of sheet metal here. That wasn't even that tight. So you can get a really nice headset preload and it doesn't move. On top of that, they have these splined, if you look real close, they have these splines on the headset on the spacer there so that it really can't go anywhere once you set it. Still got lots of grease on our bearings because they're staying stuck in the frame. But got our fork off, it looks good. It's ready to get cleaned, as well as all of our hardware here, although I'm going to wipe out the grease in this race here because it's pretty dirty. And we'll bring it back all super shiny, super clean. So we'll get these over to the cleaning station and then we'll check out the wheels here. So now that it's loose, I just did have to put the tire on there. What a difference a little grip makes, huh? Yeah, that's not in bad shape. Our metal dork disc. Totally worth it. Is that my 17? Yeah. This is just a greasy ass or dirty ass bike. That wasn't even tight. So this might be okay. Alright, I guess it's okay. There we go. Oh shit, it's a sealed bearing. Oh, I guess I should have dusted this thing off to where it says sealed bearing. So I'll be able to clean that out and replace these. That's cool. It just looks like there's a race in there, bearing race. So I'll do the same thing. I'll knock that side out and we will just go ahead and service these. This side actually feels pretty good, but that grease is really old. So definitely should be cleaned and repacked with grease. So let's go ahead and figure out how to knock this one out first. Sweet. So now I can just leave this bearing out and clean the rest of the parts. Now that we've got our parts clean here, one of the things that it needed was tires. And the tires were not only dry rotted, they were flat because of punctures. So one really good way to mediate your risk of puncture is to use Tannus Armour, which is this foam insert here of high density foam rubber. The pink thing goes inside of the tire, and then the tube goes inside of the pink thing, and then all of that goes onto the rim. So I'll show you how I put those on because they can be a little bit of a bear. So I actually start with the tube itself. So I'll inflate it just so it takes a little bit of shape and then stuff it into the Tannus Armour. But around here in other parts of the West we have what are called goat heads, and they will make your day bad if you're trying to ride your bike. So once you get the tube inside, go ahead and pop that inside of the tire. Line up your valve stems however you like. And then install this. So you want to make sure you get your rotation correct, because you don't want to have to do this again. This is going on the rear wheel, so our drive side is right here. Our valve stem is here. I'll start by putting the valve stem in first. There we go. And just like you're normally mounting the tire, I'll go ahead and just get that first bead around the rim. So it's kind of important not to try to do too much at once here. I'm just trying to get the tire onto the rim first before I try to push any of the Tannus Armour in there. Now, if some of it gets in there, that's all right. I can probably work with a little bit of that, but I just ideally want to get the tire on first. Okay. Now that we got that mounted on the other side, we'll go ahead and kind of tuck the first layer of Tannus Armour in there, and the tube as well. If it gets stuck in there, that's no problem. Now at this point you may need to start letting out a little bit of air in the tube, and that's fine. As we go along, it's totally acceptable to let air out of the tube to make it fit. It's kind of hard to push this all together if you're working against the pressure in the tube as well. And doing this will also stretch the Tannus Armour out. And once you kind of get it tucked, just like the tire bead, it will kind of stay there. I'm going to let a little bit of air pressure out here because I'm fighting it. And if you have to take the valve out, that's totally fine too. Okay. Now that the first layer of Tannus Armour is in there, I'll just go ahead and keep moving along. Tuck the tube along with the second layer of Tannus Armour about halfway around. There's little point in trying to get it all in there right now. We're just going to get it about halfway, and then we're going to start tucking the tire itself. As you can see, as I get further along, it's going to get harder and harder to get this in place. You've got to kind of make the Tannus Armour fill up the tire, but you want to make sure you don't get any pinches in your tube either. Also don't want to blow the bead out on the other side. So in this case, I'm going to take the valve core out. So that I can squeeze air out of here as I need to, and I won't be fighting any air pressure. Just set that off to the side. And then we'll just come over here. And this is kind of like mounting one of those old solid tubes. They're just difficult to start, but if you take your time and just do a little bit at a time, you get it. I will say it does help if you have a little bit wider rim for Tannus Armour. If you're running with the minimums, it's going to be very difficult to install it. Possible, but just really difficult. Don't be afraid to use a tire lever towards the end either, if you need to. Alright, that's it. And then make sure the other side's not blowing out. Put my valve core back inside, and then this is ready for air. And it also helps to, actually before I put this in, what I like to do is inflate it and then let it out a couple times just to kind of give it some shape and give it a chance to work out any pinches in the tube, because there's going to be pinches in the tube on the inside. So you kind of want to work those out. Not necessarily required, but it's just something that helps down the road. So I'm going to do this to the other wheel, and then I'm going to go ahead and put some air in these, and then we'll get this axle put back together. Alright, so we're back. We've got our tire mounted and all of our clean hardware here. We got our cassette back nice and clean from the wash. And just going to start by putting a little bit of light oil on everything. And that should already get that thing working a lot better than what it was like when we took it off the bike. It barely moved. So everything is nice and slippery now. So in here, kind of the same deal. Got this clean here. Everything still feels great. So we need to pay attention. Obviously this axle is asymmetric. This side's longer than this side. So this side needs to stick out where the cassette goes, like so. So the first thing I'm going to do is press on the old bearing, which I kept over here. And I'm probably going to go ahead and just add a little bit of Red Devil rock and roll wheel bearing grease, and just kind of pack that in there just so that it's got kind of a fresh set of. So just like it came out, we're just going to push this back on here, and it's just a press fit. So press those against each other, and at that point I want to make sure the bearing still moves very smoothly, which it does. And now we're going to push all this back through here, and the camera can't pick it up really, but there's a little tiny spacer in there that needs to be aligned in order for this to make it all the way through. So I'm going to start by cleaning the bearing journal here. Get all the old crud out of there. And then just kind of like using this screwdriver, I'm just going to kind of pick, see if I can't lift that spacer up so that I can have it aligned by the time this thing makes it through here. There we go. And that's just press fit as well. We got our axle coming out of the other side. So when we do this one here, we got to be kind of careful. Let's go ahead and thread that in place. Make sure there's literally no these should only be hand tight. These nuts that contact the bearing surfaces. That's why these things feel like they don't work sometimes, is because they're just pressed on too tight. Got our spacer, and then our jam nut, which for some reason still is having a hard time getting onto the axle threads. A little bit easier though than taking it off. Nice. Feels good. Now ready for the dork disc, which is actually cool because it's metal. Oh, that feels great. So much better. Cool. Now this wheel is done and it's ready to go back on the frame. So I'm happy with this setting here. I'm going to drop this in and it should sync up pretty closely anyway. Then this one goes on. The nice part about this system is you don't really have to over tighten anything. Feels a little tight. That's okay though. I'll accept that. Alright, so now that we've got the bike mainly assembled as the frame set, we're going to hit everything with a little lube and then polish it. feet. This bike is all clean. Okay, we've got our nice polished frame and a freshly serviced derailleur ready to go back on, and then we can cable this thing up. Now, one thing I like to do on these frames is cross the wires from left to right. So the left shifter, I'd like to go on the right side of the frame, but in this case I can't do that because of these two little guys right here, these little cable guides on top of the bottom brackets, where a more modern bike would have them underneath, or you'd run your cables on top and reroute them differently altogether, or as a lot of modern bikes are doing, they're just going inside the tubes and doing internal cable routing. At least that part's pretty easy. There's no fancy wraparounds or anything like that. It's just a straight shot from the cable guide to the derailleur clamp. There we go. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get that cable to go under the washer. The location of where you pinch the cable matters on some of these derailleurs. Tension in there to take out. Now let's try that again. Well, that's alright. That's where it's supposed to be. Alright. Seems good to me. So here we have our old piece of housing, and I'm just going to use this to measure the new housing. Keep it simple. Poke the ends, make sure they're nice and clean, not compressed or obstructed in any way before I put the barrel ends on them. A lot of these barrels from these old school bikes are closed, so you have to thread them this way. There's no quick way to remove any of this stuff. I mean, well, except for cutting it off. All right, cantilever brakes, fun times. So for these, we just need to hook up the little straddle that's on here. It's got to go back onto the main cables that we just put in here. And we'll have to adjust it a couple times to get it at the right position so it pulls the brakes the right way. Let's take our new cable and thread that through. Let me grab our straddle cable. And then just kind of figure out where it needs to be. So right now, I mean, these are pretty much wide open. So we can kind of figure that we need to pull the thing back way over here somewhere. In fact, you can kind of estimate where it needs to be. So it appears the straddle needs to be right pretty much over this little bar right here. So at this point I'll just go ahead and take the tension and move it. This is guesswork essentially, but you don't want to have to make very many guesses. So you want to get it pretty close your first time. That looks pretty good. You want to basically see like a gap, you know, about the size of the rim. It doesn't have to be perfect. We'll dial it in when we get the wheels on the bike. And then of course we want to make sure it actually works. I love these kind of cantilever brakes. These old Diacomps, these things will never break. They still work. They're super simple. They stick out a little bit, but man, they're good. Excellent design, Japan. Excellent design. So again, you can just kind of guess where you think it's going to need to start. This looks like as good a place as any. And just check it. Okay, it needs to come up a little bit, I'd say to about towards like almost touching these cables here. So you see what I mean? So it's like always good to have like some kind of visual reference against the frame just to where the straddle needs to sit. So I'm going to go right there, like where it's almost about to touch those cables. So those might be a little bit too tight, but I more or less just want to make sure it's functional. Yeah, those are definitely have to be loosened up a little bit. Not a big deal though. I'll do that when I put the wheels on, like the back one. So that's all we got to worry about for now. Go ahead and cut those cables. We won't have to make major adjustments on them, so that's fine. That allows sprockets to line up with the front derailleur properly, and it gives enough clearance on the non-drive side for the pedals to clear the frame. Awesome sauce. Everything looks good here. We do need to cap our cables for the derailleurs. Do that now before I forget, and then we're ready to put tires on. Just off center a little bit. These are horizontal dropouts, so it's always a good idea to push the wheel in to keep it square with the frame. It's important to tighten each side a little bit at a time until you get them both tight. Otherwise, you run the risk of walking the frame or walking the wheel off the frame a little bit. This bike's in really good shape. a good looking bike. So it's ready for a chain, but I guess before I put the chain on, I'm gonna go ahead and set the brakes and get those dialed in first. So I'll start with the back brake here and just see how tight we are. We're way too tight, so I need to loosen this a little bit. I only moved it about 1/4 of an inch, if that. That might even been too much. But just pay attention to how far you move it along the cable. Even if you have to like mark the cable with some marker or paint. Cool. Obviously your pads should clear. You should be able to stop the wheel very easily too. So if you can do this without having to use any barrel adjustments, then you won the Bike Tech award, because adjustment barrels are for the end user, not for the Bike Tech. Cool. So the back one is set. I'm going to go ahead and just give that a little bit of an extra torque on there to make sure it doesn't come loose later. And then the back brakes are set. Same deal with the front brakes. I already know that the front brakes are going to need to be loosened. So I'm just going to do that now. We're just going to loosen it. I'm going to move it about 1/4 of an inch down. I don't have a ton of room. I only have about 3/4 of an inch to move, but I'm sure that will be more than enough. Okay. Yep. Sweet. This is why people get frustrated with cantilever brakes. They can be a pain in the ass to get it right, you know. And if you have limited resources and you don't just have another cable laying around, that can be, you know, a couple days without your bike. Oh yeah, that feels great. Cool. So just like the other side, I'm going to go ahead and give that another couple of tugs. And then we'll call that brake good. Sweet. Now it's ready for a chain. Now we'll get our chain installed here. I always like to do this with the bike upright, although you can do it upside down. I just, in my brain, it makes it more confusing. So I always run it on the 2 smallest cogs, front and back, which would be number 1 and number 6 in this case. And then pull the cage down. Run in front of the first pulley, behind the little metal tab, and behind the second pulley, which should basically be straight down, and then just let it catch there. And then making sure that you're on the 2 smallest cogs. See what it looks like when you pull tension on the chain. If you're happy with that, then just leave it. If you think it needs more, like maybe another link, which like this one might actually benefit from another link. You see the angle, like what I'm watching here is the angle of the derailleur cage, and when I put tension on the chain, I want it to basically be like, you see the bottom part of the chain, I want that to essentially be parallel almost with the top part of the chain. So when it's like this and I do that, it's a little bit more of an acute angle. So I'm going to try to avoid that. It might be okay though. Let's see. The beautiful thing is I've got master links, so if I don't like it, I can always take it apart and add a couple of links. Okay. So that's what that's like. And so now I'm going to run it through all the gears and make sure that the chain can, in fact, run through all the gears without any issues. It looks pretty well aligned now, but before I even mess with any of the cable stuff, I want to test the limits. So I'm just going to push it with my hand and see how far I can go. And I shouldn't be able to push it off that top cog. So that looks good. Now I'll actuate it with the cable. There we go. Okay, so far so good. While it's on the largest one, I'm going to go ahead and change the gears in the front to see if we have enough chain to do that. And if it can handle the two biggest sprockets without binding, then we're in business. So there's no need to add an extra link in this case. We have an issue here. Yes, we are going to have to lift that up a little bit. It appears that our front derailleur is contacting the outer chainring because it's just a little bit too low. So that's not too bad. That's a quick fix. And I may want to tighten this rear brake because in testing everything it just looks like it's loosened up just a little bit. Alternatively, we could adjust the pads, which is probably going to be the better option. And I'll show you how I adjust and center cantilever pads that way. We'll get these brakes dialed in real good. They're okay right now. I could send it out the door the way it is, but I know I can do better. So we're going to loosen the cable tension here because we got to move this derailleur up like a quarter inch or so. You definitely want the derailleur to clear the top chainring by a good 1/8 inch at least, and it should be basically parallel to the chain and the frame, or the chainstay. That looks better. Now we'll reattach our cable. Make sure it's going to clear. Make sure it's not going to over travel, which in this case it's over traveling. So we don't want that. And anytime you do move the derailleur, you're going to probably have to play with the limit switches. Limit screws, damn it. Limit screws on here. So we do have to do that in this case. So once again, take the cable off and just turn this thing and kind of see where it is on its own. See how it's basically still on the middle cog and it doesn't want to shift to the inner one. So we need to adjust the inner set screw. I'm going to back that out a couple of turns, or essentially until it shifts. There. It wasn't far. Hook the cable up once again. Once you kind of determine how far you want to set this screw down until it contacts the stop. And then you can just test it several times to make sure that it can't over travel. Because believe me, if it can, it will. So you just want to go back and forth in a bunch of different gears and make sure you don't drop the chain. we almost did. See, like it did something weird here. They don't like that. How come that didn't happen before? That's interesting, because I swear before I had it on both. Okay, it does go. It doesn't like it, but it goes. Like if it doesn't catch right away, it can jam. Basically, that's what I've seen here. You shouldn't be in those two gear ratios anyway. Gotcha. Alright. I think the gears are good. I'm just going to go ahead and leave that in the middle gear for right now, and we're going to dial these brakes in. Okay, now we got to get our brakes dialed in here, and I'll show you a way to adjust these without messing around with any of the cables here. So what we're going to do is we're going to start, and we're just going to loosen each pad here. So we'll just take this little 10 mil and crack these loose to the point where you can kind of move them around pretty easily. Okay. And once those pads are loose, we're going to turn the adjustment barrel on the lever over here up to, I don't know, you don't have to adjust it all the way out, maybe like halfway, or not even halfway out. I'm going to come out about 3/16 of an inch or so. It depends on how tight you want your brakes to be. So I'm just going to leave that alone, and then I'm going to come back over here to my brake pads and just push this and seat it up against the rim and hold it there with my finger while I tighten the pad. And then just make sure that's good and tight. Okay, I don't like how that went down. Something slipped. You don't want to adjust the cable tension if you can avoid it in your straddle cable, so try to leave that alone. Go ahead and move to the other side. And what this does is it centers the pads relative to the rim, and so that when we back the barrel off, it's going to back each pad off evenly. So these are really easy to center. Just get those good and tight. Once they're nice and snug, we can go ahead and back our barrel off over here, and that should release the brakes enough once we go down all the way here. To where our back wheel moves freely, and we got good tight brakes. Nice tight brakes. Properly seated, properly centered, ready to go. Alright guys, that's pretty much it for this this build right here. So hope you liked this video, and if you like this kind of content, me working on bikes and stuff like that, showing you what's up, seeing cool builds, let me know and I'll do some more. Maybe I'll even work on your bike. You can mail it to me in my shop and I'll rebuild it and send it back to you. So if you got an old bike, let me know. I'm always looking for cool projects and stuff to do here in the shop. So yeah, Anyway, peace out. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll keep coming back for more bike content, and we'll keep those wheels rolling. Talk to y'all later.